Hello, my name is Steve Olson. I am the Manager of Training Services for Mesa, and I'm also an Inventor certified professional. I've been teaching Inventor for quite some time now, and recently in a class I had an interesting question that led to an interesting answer, and I wanted to share with you in this screencast. So the issue mostly revolves around having some slightly complicated motion that they want to see occur, and we'll have to do that by suppressing and turning on constraints at certain times. So here is the model that I was talking about. And what you'll see here is that as the upper plate comes up and down, what we need to have is this piece of the tooling to come slide along this face and kind of be slid in and kind of lock something into place. But this block up here is kind of a stopping point for this upper block, and it needs to kind of stop at a certain time. We tried a couple different options, but iLogic ended up being our final resolution. So let me kind of show you some of the things that I had to set up, and then I'll set up the rules that takes care of this. So first off, what I set up was a constraint that would lock the upper piece in here into the blocking the stopping block. And then I also created a constraint then that took this face and matched it, so then it would slide on that. So now I have this set up. I also needed a constraint that would control how much, the location of the upper plate, because at a certain point, the mate 5, which was holding the two faces of those pieces together, would have to release, and at a certain point, mate 4, which would be where that piece is blocked, would have to kind of be, again, its stopping point. So right now here is the main kind of transition point for this model, where in certain cases it's going to need to release that offset. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up a constraint. I'm going to grab the inside face of this upper plate. Also going to, real quick before I make my second selection, I'm going to use this predict offset at orientation. So basically what's going to happen here when I make my second selection, in this field it's going to give me what the current offset is. So right now, since I know that I'm fully all the way to the stopping block and I'm connected to the sliding face, it's giving me a value of 2.4. I'm going to give this constraint a meaningful name by saying offset equals 2.4. So I know that, again, this is my tipping point where everything's going to, on one side of this value, one constraint needs to be turned on the other side of it, the other constraint needs to be turned on. So giving this constraint a meaningful name will give me something easier to refer to in my iLogic. So we'll go ahead and say OK to this. And technically there I'm getting a little bit of an issue with that mate 4 because it's probably just a little bit off there. What I'm going to do right now is I'm actually just going ahead and suppress this. So now I've got that constraint even suppressed. All my errors are gone away. So I'm actually going to create a rule now. Call it motion. And I'll create a little if-then statement here. So I'm going to use my model parameters and find that offset constraint that I had, or the offset name. So we'll say if offset is greater than or equal to 2.4, then what do I want to happen? Well, if that's the case, I want to make sure that the one constraint gets turned on and the other one gets off. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab the current state of mate 4 and the current state of state 5. And actually, if offset is greater than 2.5, 2.25, I'm actually going to need the opposite of my current state. So I'm going to set these to true. Set this to false. And then I'm just going to set up an else statement and get the opposite of these. me zoom in real tight here real quick so you can see the actual text of what I've got set up there. So basically, if the offset is greater than or equal to 2.4, then my mate 4 turns on, my mate 5 turns off. If the opposite is true, then mate 4 gets turned off and mate 5 gets turned on. So I'm going to say OK to this. And now let's kind of, one other way I can take a look and see this motion here is through a form. So I'm going to create a quick iLogic form here, call it motion. And I can add my offset value to there. So by looking at that offset value, it's going to change my part here. And I can, for that offset parameter, I can actually set up a slightly different controlling behavior or control type for that parameter. Right now it's a text box where I just would key it in. I can use this drop down to tell it to allow me to use a slider, or I can set its min value, which I'll set to 2, which I know from my geometry that 2 is my closest value. Upper could be 3, and I'll step at 0.1. Say OK, bring my bar, my slider up here. Now you can see as I slide this, it starts pushing that part away as I bring it back up, and now it releases that constraint. So as I slide back and forth, you can see it's getting the motion that I want. I want to thank you very much for watching this video. Please feel free to send comments, and also feel free to like this video to share with friends. Thank you. Have a good day.